The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Years ago, I shot 10 bags of heroin every day. Heroin is a beast, and that beast has infiltrated every town and city in America. In 2016, 64,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose of opioids. I hope that the stories we bring you on this show save lives in 2018. I'm Richie Farrell. I'm a heroin addict.
Okay, here we go. We're live here for our first show, the I Am a Heroin Addict, and what our goal is in 2018. As we go into 2018, our goal is to save lives. I wrote this book a few years ago called I'm a Heroin Addict, and in that book, it details my life on the street when I was a junkie a long time ago. I have 30 years being clean, and I was one of the lucky ones. I came out the other side, and I could talk about how I went on to win the DuPont Columbia, and I climbed the stairs at Columbia University to receive my award. I could talk about on the red carpet for The Fighter with Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg, but you know, that's not the story of this show. That only pumps up my ego, and my ego is big enough. I don't need to pump it up anymore. When I decided to do this show, it's kind of a unique story. I was in Hollywood 2 years ago, around this time, coming home. It was actually the end of October, flying from Los Angeles to back home to Boston to see my wife and son. And I've been working out there as a screenwriter, working back and forth. Early Saturday morning, coming over the Grand Canyon, we're on Virgin America, not many people on the plane, beautiful. The pilot says, take a look out your left side and see just a breathtaking view. I went over and I had this epiphany. Something just hit me like I got punched in the belly. And I started crying my eyes out. It just went, you know, I just couldn't stop. And I knew the stewardesses from being back and forth so much. And she sat down and she said, Richie, you okay? You okay? And yeah, I was okay. It was like I looked at this thing and said, how did I survive? How did I make it out? How did I climb this hill? How did I get to where I am? You know, I had a lot of support, belief in God, faith, all that stuff. But it finally came to me. Wow, how did this go down? And I sat down, took out my computer after I felt really good, after a good cry, and I wrote this piece that I called I Am a Heroin Addict. And I was lucky enough to send it to editors at the Huffington Post, the largest newspaper that's read online, over 6 million readers a day. So it's the biggest one online. And they go, oh my God, we want you to write this. We want you to write for us. So I put it in there, and it went in November 2nd, 2015. It went viral. It was like, just took off. People, I would get calls, and it was amazing what happened. In 2015, in those short months, it was the most, in Buzzamo, which I found all this stuff out after the thing went viral, but they're an organization that tracks shares. It was the largest, it had the largest numbers of 2015 for a article that had heroin addict in it. So from that moment on, I knew there was something there. I knew that I had to do something, that I had survived this thing. You know, I remarried, I have a son, he's 12 now, 10 back then, and I saw all the dying around me, and I said, I have to jump in this. I have to get in this. It can be my legacy. You know, at some point, I woke up and I realized that I had a lot more yesterdays than I'm ever going to have tomorrow. And when I did that, I said, you know, what am I going to leave behind? Some trophies on the wall, you know, or can I actually go out there and help young people like I was? I know it's hard to believe sometimes, but I was young once. And so that's what I did. And I started writing stories that were controversial, stories that made people look. This is for the Huffington Post. That made people look at what was happening. In 2016, 64,070 Americans died of an accidental overdose of opioids. And so I had to figure out why. So to set up my guest here, I wrote this article. I forget what it was, but you know, let me just step back for a second. I have people from my articles. I've been contacted by people that have cures for everything, you know, and they're nuclear scientists and physicists and all the. And you know, one time I had to tell the guy that if he didn't stop contacting me, I was going to have to report him to the police. But I love talking to anybody. So all of a sudden, I get this email from a Percy Menzies. I couldn't even pronounce it at first because I'm Irish and I only can speak Boston language. So I couldn't even pronounce it. And I go, Percy, man, wait a minute. Is that a fighter I know from Lowell when a kid that I borrowed $20 off him, and he's here calling me to get paid back. But anyway, I talked to him on the phone, and he was this crazy Indian guy. And I go, oh my God, funny. His sense of humor was kind of like mine. And the story he had to tell, what he's doing in St. Louis, what he's doing in Missouri. And he's been at this for 18 years. So it's my pleasure now to bring him on to this show that we hope that will be all across the country. A year from now, when we do our anniversary show, we're going to have him back. Well, he'll be back many times, but I'd like to introduce my friend and partner in this battle, Percy Menzies. How are you today, Percy?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm very honored to be invited to be the first guest on this show. As I was telling you, the last couple of days in St. Louis, I came into this field rather accidentally. I happened to work for the pharmaceutical company that developed two amazing medications. One is called Narcan, which is also an naloxone, which is now being distributed everywhere. You know, police are carrying it, first responders are carrying it, and even giving it to high schoolers and in public libraries, and now they're even giving it to schools and colleges. It's a lifesaver, but it only saves a life when the patient has overdosed and they're very close to death. It was an amazing medication. And that was developed almost 30 years ago. And then we developed another medication called naltrexone, which I'll be talking about. That naltrexone was developed by the federal government as a medication to prevent relapses. As you probably know, and you have gone through your own addiction, you relapse many, many times. Relapse is one of the most frustrating symptoms of the disease or the disorder. So this was developed as a non-opioid to prevent people from relapsing.
So let me stop you for 1 second, right? So what I want to do, because that's one of the things I want to really jump on, but I want to regress a little. Tell me in your words, how did we get here? What were the things that brought us this epidemic on us? What were the three things that brought this epidemic to us?
Okay, I call this the opioid flood control that went awry. So the opioid is a double-edged sword. We had pretty much controlled the use of opioids and restricted that for acute pain, because we knew for the longest time opioids are a very dangerous drug if they're used for a long time. That's how it started. But we opened the floodgates, and we erroneously told physicians that don't worry about using opioids for chronic pain. Use it for as long as they need it, at any dose you wanted. And once we opened the floodgates, that was the creation of the problem today we have. So that was the first stream. Think about it. That was the first stream that started flowing. So obviously, in response to this flood that was occurring, the Mexican mafia saw a very good opportunity to now add to the stream, create a new stream. And that was bringing illegal heroin. Now, of course, everything is illegal, but bringing heroin into this country. And they did it in a brilliant way. They did it in a non-violent way because, drug dealing is always associated with violence. But they started distributing heroin like it was distributing pizza. Completely non-violent and primarily to the suburbia, the urban kids, the white kids. So that became the second stream. And now we have this huge problem that was completely unanticipated by the federal government. By the time this problem occurred, we had a raging stream, two streams joining together. Okay, so what do you do with the treatment? Because we thought that we had finally licked heroin addiction in the 70s and 80s. Once the Vietnam War ended, we thought it was the end of heroin addiction. We'll not see this problem again. So we didn't do much in developing newer medications, newer therapies. We just let it languish because heroin was more normally seen in pockets in poor Black communities. And the only medication they had was a drug called methadone. So methadone was used. Go ahead.
Let me just stop for a second because the time. I want to make sure we get this all in. So right now, there are 3 drugs that we use to stop this raging river. Right? There's 3 of them. Can you talk to us about what 3 drugs they are and what they do to the brain?
Yes. So the drug that was there, when it's a long story, but Nixon allowed a very controversial drug called methadone, which was developed by the Nazis during the Second World War as a synthetic morphine. It did not have much use, but they had no other choice because morphine comes from the poppy, and the poppy primarily grows in Turkey and India, which was the main source of morphine, which the Germans did not have access to it. So anyway, after the war ended, they brought methadone to the U.S. primarily as a pain medication. But when we saw this surge of heroin in the 1970s, especially during the 60s and 70s during the Vietnam War, something had to be done. They had to take something off the shelf to help these people because it was seen as a critical way to help them. So in a great rush, they brought methadone as a treatment in the hope that we will develop newer medications. So methadone was introduced in the 1970s. And then they developed naltrexone as a non-opioid drug because we know from history that using an addicting drug to treat an addiction can always be problematic. We have to do that as we are doing it right now. So naltrexone was developed, and never in the field of medicine do we have 2 drugs at the opposite spectrum for the same indication. We got
methadone and naltrexone. So we got an opioid agonist, an opioid and a non-opioid, correct? Okay, so
the complete opposite of each other. They're polar opposite medications. Now you use methadone when the patient is actively using drugs. Now, once over a period of time, they are treated, or they go to jail, they go to residential program. Now they're coming back into the lion's den. They're coming back home to a landscape that is strewn with all sorts of triggers and cues. We need to protect them. So naltrexone was developed as a preventative medication, not as treatment, to prevent something. So there's a big difference between treatment and prevention. It was developed. So they were both there, languishing. There was not much use for them. Some people are using methadone, and then they brought in a new medication called buprenorphine. It's a mouthful, but it's better known by its brand name called Suboxone. And Suboxone is an opioid that they thought would be a good replacement for methadone because methadone is very restricted. It can only be administered in clinics. Buprenorphine was supposed to be given by physicians in their offices. It did not quite work as planned because they believed that buprenorphine also could get into the marketplace and may inadvertently add to the 2 streams that are already joined together. So to prevent that from happening, they put restrictions on methadone. So a physician had to obtain a DEA exemption, and not many have taken it. Less than 5% of US physicians have obtained the DEA waiver, but still, with all that, with all these restrictions, you still see quite a bit of buprenorphine that is leaking into the marketplace, and now that has become the third stream. So now we have three raging rivers. One is three raging streams that have become a river: prescription opioids, heroin coming in, and diversion of prescription opioids like buprenorphine that is used to treat the opioid addiction. So now we have this perfect storm that we're dealing with.
So tell me something. How does those three drugs affect the brain? How do the receptors? Explain that to me, because go ahead. Explain that to me about
I can explain, because I think I tell people that opiates are very unique in their pharmacology, that they can enter the brain only through one door called the opiate receptor. So the opiate receptor is what, once the drug binds to the opiate receptor, it will activate it. And the activation can lead to sedation, analgesia, and the problem is euphoria too. So whenever you use any drug that completely activates the opiate receptor, they are called agonists. So your agonists are oxycodone, hydrocodone, oxymorphone, so on, and methadone too. Then you have a second class of medication that is buprenorphine that will also go to the opiate receptor, bind with it, but only partially activate it. So it's safer than methadone. And the third medication works very, very differently, and that is naltrexone. It will go and shut that door, shut it down so strongly that nothing can enter the door. So the receptor is not protected, and that's how it works as a preventative drug. It goes, binds with the opioid receptor, completely shuts it down.
Okay, so just so I get this right for the viewers, we have this door in the brain that opens, that takes the opioid in. One door. Methadone leaves that door wide open. The door is wide open. Suboxone just opens it a little bit to let some air in, right? Naltrexone coats the door so no opiates could get in. Okay, so tell me something then. We're treating, as one of our MAT, right? MAT is again what? It's
medication-assisted treatment.
That's it, medication-assisted treatment. So in America today, for this worst health crisis in the United States history, we're treating opioid addicts with an opioid with something that opens that door. When there's a drug out there that shuts the door and protects the opioids from going in, correct?
That's right.
So, and it's called harm reduction, which everybody, I said, why are you doing that? Why? I can't see, because we don't do this for alcoholics, do we? Do we give them a shot of whiskey every morning to keep them okay?
But, when we don't have treatments, we have practiced harm reduction. That's a very, very common reaction when you don't have treatments. For instance, many people don't know this, but when people were using distilled spirits like vodka and rum and gin and so on, the treatment was giving them beer as harm reduction. Okay, so we've done that until we find effective treatments. So when we didn't have effective treatments, we practice harm reduction, which should be done because you have to do everything to prevent somebody from dying. So one strategy for harm reduction was a brilliant, and I think a humane strategy was in the 80s and 90s, giving people clean needles.
Right.
But harm reduction is an important fact, but cannot be the end in itself. Now the next harm reduction is you giving out people who are using drugs syringes of Narcan, saying that if one of your buddies overdose, use them to revive it. But I again vehemently, I very strongly endorse that. But what I'm also saying is we need to go to the next step, because is there a way we can use prevention? Because whenever you have an epidemic, you have to take a three-pronged strategy. One is that people who are addicted you should do everything to prevent them from overdosing and get them into treatment. The second is we have to do something to prevent people who already have been treated from relapsing and getting re-addicted? And thirdly, what can you do to prevent people from even using heroin? And that's where I think I'm on a mission. And I'm suggesting that we have been so strong and we are advocating Narcan or naloxone. Why not use naltrexone as a preventative drug? And I'm on a mission, and I'm calling it medication-assisted prevention. So Narcan and naltrexone are identical. They belong to the same class. The only difference is that Narcan or naloxone lasts for only 30 minutes, but a pill of naltrexone lasts for 30 hours.
Wait a minute, just let me get this straight so what you're saying, so I understand it. So Narcan, which everybody, all the police carry, everybody carries, you put in your nose, that saves people's lives, right? And naltrexone are the exact same drug, correct? One is the Narcan lasts for 30 minutes, and the other one, naltrexone, lasts longer, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So
what I suggest is that you might have some people who are at a high risk. You might have a patient who said that, you know what, I was using heroin 5 years ago. Things were fine, but something has changed in my life. I'm at a very high risk. My best friend overdosed. You know, I lost my job. Something happened. I have this very strong craving to use heroin. They have no drug in the system. There are no opiates. They need some protection. Naltrexone will be the ideal drug to protect them. I can give you a list of people who are at a high risk, and that should be used as a prevention.
So why? So tell me this: if someone was just flipping channels and came on here and saw this, or was tuning in, they would be looking at us for the last 25 minutes or so, and they would say, "Well, wait a minute. How come that we just don't go to this drug? Why? How come? How come we haven't heard about it before? How come people are still standing in lines every morning, paying $18 cash, or a cash bill is for supply? Why aren't we using this?"
Because, you know, the epidemic hit us so capitally. It was like a huge tsunami that hit us. So before we could develop any strategies, these things happened. So we are completely, you know, we do not know how to react. We are almost, paralyzed. So now that, you know, after this 64,000 people dying should be a wake-up call. And I'm saying we are fighting a raging battle. Every weapon we have should be utilized with great creativity to save lives. I truly believe, Richie, that using naltrexone in the appropriate patient, now there's much work has to be done. We have to create a groundswell. People should be wearing T-shirts like "I hate heroin. I protected myself with a map," things of that sort.
So let me just say this, and I have to say, because we only have under a minute left here, and I have to let you go. But I have to say the program that you run, I was there 2 days. This Assisted Recovery Centers of America is phenomenal. I sat there with 5 individuals that have gone through this program and take naltrexone, and it saved their, I mean, people from 2 years sobriety to 5 years sobriety. Actually, one of the, John is going to be our guest next week. He's going to be our second guest. But it's incredible what you're doing out there. Excuse me. I'm really glad that you contacted me. I look forward to us working together. I look forward to us trying to stop that raging water coming down. Brother, you're a great guy. Keep up the battle.
Always, they can contact me. They can go to my website, arcamidwest.com, or they can even go to, you know, and it just puts a Percy Menzies on Google, and I'll be happy to talk to people, because I want to get a debate going in this nation saying enough is enough. 64,000 should be our wake-up call for us, that we have to create an emergency, that we cannot allow this to happen. People are predicting that, you know, in the next 10 years, there'll be another 500,000 people dying. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Even more. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Thank you very much. We'll be talking to you soon. Keep fighting the battle.
Okay, thanks for inviting me.
All right, brother. Thank you. So I got to tell you, that the program that Percy runs out there is phenomenal. He's just such a, I mean, you talk about a passion, and he has this is going to be his legacy. I mean, I mean, I can't tell you, the room I sat in for 5 hours with these 5 individuals, and it's phenomenal. These people have their lives back. Percy, this type of angle, and he's exactly right. I got straight through abstinence. It was the old days. It's bang, you know. But my father, if you read my book, I was uniquely qualified to have that willpower because I was, you know, this tough Irish kid that got beaten up all the time. So there are some people that don't have that psyche. So they need this drug. And I think all drugs, like Percy said, everything that we have in our arsenal, we should throw at them. Everything. Yeah, we should throw, and we should just keep going, and we should just keep going, and we should keep going. Now, what I will say is that it's not going to be easy because we're dealing with lobbyists, big pharma. It's a lot of money, you know, methadone to show up every morning. When you think about this, methadone and Suboxone, it's the greatest business model ever because there's no accounts receivable. You don't have to get everything that comes through the door is $18. $18. You go to a Suboxone. Yeah, we're still live. Yeah, I'm still wrapping up here. I got about a minute to say goodbye to everybody and wish them back. But so what we have to do is we all have to work together, every one of us. It can't be these silo groups out there that I've seen. I'll do my job. I'll do my job. We have to work together. And the only way we're going to start, think about 64,070 people in 2016. In over a decade, we lost 55,000 in Vietnam. We're on course to lose a Vietnam War every year for the next 10 years. We're better than that, people. We're better than that. We have to look at Big Pharma. We have to look at this, the politics of this. We got to work together. And if we work together, if we fight, we can make a major dent in this, the worst health crisis in American history. I really look forward to the year we're going to show, and I can guarantee a year from now we'll be all over the country. A year from now, I believe that Percy's group will be all over the country. He's going in. I mean, I could just go, but in signing off, it's going to be a great journey. I thank this great studio, the wonderful people here, and I look forward to seeing you real soon.
Years ago, I shot 10 bags of heroin every day. Heroin is a beast, and that beast has infiltrated every town and city in America. In 2016, 64,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose of opioids. I hope that the stories we bring you on this show save lives in 2018. I'm Richie Farrell. I'm a heroin addict.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.